The Lil Baby case has taken a dramatic turn that could spell the end of the superstar's freedom, and it all hinges on conversations that were never meant to reach the public ear. I'm talking about wiretaps, the surveillance tool that's brought down countless criminal enterprises and might now be the nail in the coffin for one of hip-hop's biggest stars. The recordings that changed everything. The bombshell dropped on April 1st, 2025, when Atlanta gang investigator Marissa Viverito took the stand in a courtroom proceeding related to the Goodfellas gang case. What unfolded next sent shockwaves through the hip-hop world, the playing of wiretapped conversations that directly implicated Lil Baby, born Dominique Jones, in what prosecutors are characterizing as murder-for-hire schemes. Let's listen to the actual court audio where this explosive evidence was presented.
Gang leader Dominique Jones was almost struck by gunfire.
The gang leader of 4PF is Dominic
Gang leader
Lil Baby Jones. And they say he was almost struck by gunfire. Now they're claiming after the incident that 4PF went on a murder spree.
The prosecutor then questioned Viverito about what we just heard.
We just heard somebody say these folks got tickets on these people. We know what's going on. First of all, who was that said that about the tickets?
Viverito identified the speakers in this critical conversation.
Unc, the unidentified male that was being referred to as Unc.
And he's speaking with Mr. Sanders.
Correct.
This Mr. Sanders is Keontae Sanders, a key figure in the OMF Only My Family gang, a subset of the Goodfellas. Sanders was already incarcerated at the time of this conversation, but was allegedly using contraband phones to coordinate criminal activities from behind bars. The prosecutor then established the meaning of the term tickets in gang parlance.
And what, in your experience, do you know what tickets are?
A price on somebody's head.
What do you mean by it? What do you mean on somebody's head? What is that?
Like a bounty.
And then came the moment that could potentially seal Lil Baby's fate.
Okay. To have them arrested?
Harmed or killed.
And who were they referring to in that portion of the call?
They were saying that they had heard that Dominique Jones had tickets on a lot of people's heads.
Dominique Jones wanted to have people harmed.
Correct.
All right, moving on.
Let that sink in. In a court of law, an experienced gang investigator testified that intercepted communications revealed discussions about Lil Baby allegedly placing bounties on people's heads, essentially ordering hits. This represents a quantum leap from previous allegations that merely connected him to gang violence through a provocative music video shoot. But here's where the story gets even more intricate and potentially damning. The relationship between Lil Baby and Sanders, the incarcerated gang member on these wiretaps, appears to be far more complex than simple rivalry. In fact, previous reports indicated that Sanders allegedly planned to extort Lil Baby for $5 million, suggesting an adversarial relationship that adds a disturbing layer to these wiretap conversations. This extortion angle emerged from earlier investigations into the gang conflict that allegedly began with Lil Baby's controversial music video shoot in May 2024.
Just one last question. So who tried to extort Lil Baby allegedly?
So allegedly, one of the opposing gang members, who's like higher ranking in the gang, he was telling his girlfriend on one of the recorded calls that he planned to he was seeking revenge on Baby, like I mentioned earlier, and part of that was going to be to extort him for $5 million when he came home from prison. I don't know what the extortion would be, like what he was going to try and hang over his head, but that was what they recovered from these phones and the informant.
That's why I don't talk.
What makes this extortion element particularly sinister in light of the wiretap revelations is the inference that can be drawn. If Sanders was openly discussing plans to extort Lil Baby for millions and simultaneously discussing tickets allegedly placed by Lil Baby on people's heads, we could be looking at an escalating back and forth of threats and counter threats between high-level figures in rival organizations. The timeline of events adds further weight to this disturbing interpretation. The wiretap conversations were reportedly captured in the period between the May 2024 music video shoot, where 3 people were shot but survived, and the tragic July 2024 shooting that killed 2 13-year-old boys, Layman Freeman and Jacody Davis, and injured an 11-year-old. To understand how we got here, we need to trace this case back to its origins. The saga began with what might seem like a routine music video shoot in May 2024, but according to police, this was far from an ordinary production. According to police, Lil Baby filmed a video in an area of Atlanta controlled by the OMF gang, which they described as rival territory to his affiliated 4PF, Four Pockets Full Crew. During this shoot, violence erupted with 3 men men being shot, though all survived. Lil Baby himself was unharmed. Following this incident, police alleged that a series of retaliatory actions occurred, including the shooting death of OMF member Trevante Turner on June 29, 2024, which they attribute to 4PF. This was allegedly followed by the July 2nd, 2024 shooting that claimed the lives of the two teenage boys. In February 2025, the Atlanta Police Department held a press conference about these events that sent shockwaves through the music industry. Without naming Lil Baby directly, Major Ralph Woolfolk made pointed accusations.
Lamont Freeman was allowed to be a 13-year-old for 27 minutes before gang violence ultimately took his life. Gang violence that was orchestrated by adults in our city, and cowardly acts of an Atlanta-based rapper that decided to go over into a rival gang stronghold and shoot a music video in a place that he knew he should not have been.
While Woolfolk didn't name Lil Baby directly, local news outlet Channel 2 Action News soon obtained arrest, warrants confirming he was the rapper in question. At that point, the allegations centered around his role in indirectly sparking violence through the provocative music video location. Lil Baby responded to these initial claims with a brief Instagram post dismissing them as fake news and assuring fans he was overly good. His legal team, led by attorneys Drew Findling and Marissa Goldberg, released a statement calling the police's reference to Lil Baby complete and total nonsense. However, the April 2025 wiretap revelations have dramatically escalated the situation. These recorded conversations don't just suggest Lil Baby's indirect role in sparking violence, they allegedly capture discussions about him directly ordering harm to others through bounties or tickets. The fact that these wiretaps were presented during court proceedings related to the Goodfellas/OMF gang case, rather than a case directly targeting Lil Baby, makes them particularly concerning. It suggests authorities are methodically building a larger case that could eventually ensnare the rapper in a RICO, Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act indictment. In fact, this appears to be exactly what's happening. According to reports, Sean Hoover, who manages the Georgia Public Defenders Council specialized unit in gang cases, confirmed that the office is actively preparing for racketeering indictment on the 4PF and OMF cases, and that he expects Lil Baby to be indicted with others. This revelation from the Public Defender's Office essentially confirms what many had suspected, that authorities are building toward a RICO case against 4PF, with Lil Baby at its center. The pattern follows similar high-profile cases in Atlanta, most notably the ongoing YSL RICO case against Young Thug and his associates. What makes the wiretap evidence particularly potent is that it provides what legal experts call predicate acts, specific crimes that form the basis of a RICO case. If prosecutors can establish that Lil Baby was ordering hits through the placement of tickets or bounties, that could serve as the foundation for treating 4PF as a criminal enterprise rather than just a record label. Sanders, surveillance, and suspicious deaths. Now let's delve deeper into the complex web of relationships, particularly focusing on Sanders, the incarcerated gang member at the center of these wiretapped conversations. Keontae Sanders, also known as Midnight, is a key figure in the OMF Only My Family gang, a subset of the Goodfellas. What makes Sanders particularly interesting in this case is his unusual position, incarcerated yet allegedly continuing to orchestrate criminal activities using contraband phones. According to court testimony, investigators first became aware of Sanders' role through his social media activity.
All right, and this investigation began with your looking at the certain Instagram page, and whose was that?
The Instagram page belonged to Keontae Sanders, also known as Midnight.
What followed was a revelation about the sophisticated surveillance techniques used in this investigation. Investigators didn't just monitor phone calls, they also recovered messages that the suspects believed had disappeared.
Okay. And while looking at that page, you found some direct message communications, one of which showed a disappearing message between Mr. Sanders and somebody named Mr. Smith.
Once I received his Instagram returns back, yes.
This detail is particularly significant because it demonstrates the level of technological sophistication being employed in this investigation. Many people believe that disappearing messages on platforms like Instagram or Snapchat are truly ephemeral, but as this evidence shows, these communications can still be recovered by law enforcement with the proper legal authority. The message in question appeared to involve a figure with connections to Lil Baby.
And so that was Martavius Smith sent that to Mr. Sanders.
He did.
All right, now, what was significant about that to you?
I knew that J-Shot or John Smith was a close associate of the leader of 4PF, Dominique Lil Baby Jones.
This establishes an important connection between Sanders and individuals in Lil Baby's circle, suggesting ongoing communications between members of rival organizations that could be characterized as monitoring each other's movements or potentially planning violence. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the Sanders wiretap is the discussion of tickets or bounties. The fact that these conversations were happening while Sanders was incarcerated suggests a particularly dangerous dynamic. Someone already serving time might have less to lose by ordering violence or discussing it openly, knowing they're already behind bars. What's more, Sanders' alleged plan to extort Lil Baby for $5 million upon his release adds another layer of complexity to the situation. This extortion plan, combined with discussions about tickets allegedly placed by Lil Baby, paints a picture of escalating threats between high-level figures in rival organizations, a powder keg situation that tragically appears to have resulted in actual violence, including the deaths of innocent children. Legal experts who have analyzed similar cases note that when wiretap evidence captures discussions of violence or criminal plans involving incarcerated individuals like Sanders, it often strengthens prosecutors' arguments about the organized and ongoing nature of criminal conspiracies, exactly the type of evidence needed for RICO cases. Former federal prosecutor Elena Martinez, who specialized in organized crime but isn't involved in this case, explained to legal analysts, when you have an individual like Sanders, who's already incarcerated yet allegedly continuing to coordinate criminal activities, it allows prosecutors to demonstrate the persistent and organized nature of the enterprise. This is particularly valuable in RICO prosecutions, which require establishing patterns of racketeering activity over time. The Sanders wiretaps also reveal something even more troubling: the potential involvement of correctional staff or systems in facilitating criminal communications. For Sanders to be having these conversations from prison requires access to contraband phones or other communication methods, suggesting corruption or security failures within the prison system itself. This systemic issue was highlighted by Atlanta police officials during their February press conference.
Authorities say a high-ranking member of the Goodfellas gang who was incarcerated orchestrated the attack using a smuggled cell phone. Following those instructions, the suspects opened fire at an apartment complex where the three young teens were gathered to celebrate Freeman's birthday. Police say they weren't the target.
The fact that an incarcerated individual could allegedly orchestrate a shooting that resulted in the deaths of children points to catastrophic failures in the correctional system, failures that are now potentially being used to build a case against Lil Baby and others. Another disturbing pattern that's emerged in this investigation involves the suspicious deaths of potential witnesses. One such case involves Keontae Davis, who had previously identified 4PF Nathan Benford as the shooter in another murder case, leading to a 40-year sentence for Benford. According to court records, Davis testified against Benford, identifying him as the shooter in the murder of Jacoy Villas Wilson. For his cooperation, Davis reportedly received probation, while Benford was sentenced to 40 years. This makes Davis a key witness who flipped on 4PF a significant detail in the context of the current investigation. In a shocking development that has investigators concerned, Davis was reportedly killed just days ago.
This morning, Atlanta police say they are investigating a homicide that happened overnight, less than a mile away on Lakewood Avenue. Our crew saw police overnight collecting evidence on that scene. We are still working to learn exactly what happened and get more information about this scene. We'll bring you those updates as soon as we get them and give them to you on 11 Alive.
The man that was taken to the hospital and succumbed to his injuries, that man was identified by the Fulton medical examiner as 27-year-old Keontae Davis.
Bro, this is power.
The timing of Davis's death, occurring just as authorities appeared to be building toward a RICO case against 4PF, raises serious questions about potential witness tampering or retaliation. While no direct connection has been established between Davis's death and the ongoing investigation, the pattern is troubling enough that investigators are reportedly examining possible links. Criminal defense attorney Marcus Barnes, who has handled multiple RICO cases but isn't involved in this matter, noted, "The death of a potential witness, particularly someone who has previously cooperated with authorities against alleged associates of the target organization, is something prosecutors take extremely seriously. In RICO cases, witness intimidation or retaliation often becomes an additional predicate act in the indictment itself. This pattern of suspicious deaths or threats to potential witnesses creates a climate of fear that can both hamper investigations and simultaneously strengthen prosecutors' arguments about the dangerous nature of the organizations they're targeting. The situation has become so concerning that reportedly, the Georgia Public Defender's Council is already preparing for a major RICO case involving both 4PF and OMF, suggesting that indictments may be imminent.
Who manages the Georgia Public Defender's Council specialized unit in gang cases. So the public defenders who handle the gang cases for gang members who can't have attorneys because they can't afford it.
Right.
The public defender office just said the office is actively preparing for racketeering indictment on the 4PF and OMF cases, and that he expects Lil Baby to be indicted with others.
This preparation by the public defender's office is particularly telling. They wouldn't be allocating resources to this case unless they had strong indications from prosecutorial agencies that indictments are forthcoming. The RICO threat and a career in the balance. Now let's examine what this all means for Lil Baby's future and how this case fits into a broader pattern of RICO prosecutions targeting Atlanta rappers. The revelation of wiretapped conversations discussing tickets allegedly placed by Lil Baby represents perhaps the most serious legal threat the rapper has faced in his career. Unlike previous allegations that centered around his indirect role in sparking violence through a provocative music video location, these wiretaps potentially link him directly to alleged murder-for-hire schemes, a far more serious legal situation. Criminal defense attorney James Montgomery, who specializes in high-profile RICO cases but isn't involved in this matter, offered a sobering assessment. Wiretap evidence discussing bounties or tickets on individuals' heads is exactly the type of smoking gun prosecutors look for in building RICO cases. It potentially establishes not just gang affiliation, but actual direction or ordering of violence, which goes to the heart of what RICO statutes are designed to target organized criminal activity. While it's important to note that the wiretaps reportedly feature Sanders and an unidentified individual discussing what they believed or had heard about Lil Baby placing bounties, rather than direct communications with Lil Baby himself, this introduces a level of hearsay that his defense team would certainly highlight. However, in the context of a broader RICO case with multiple sources of evidence, even these secondhand discussions could prove damaging. The legal landscape for Lil Baby looks increasingly precarious, particularly given the apparent preparation by authorities for a major RICO indictment. This preparation hasn't just been happening behind closed doors, it's becoming increasingly public, with even the Georgia Public Defender's Council reportedly gearing up for the case. What's especially concerning from Lil Baby's perspective is how this case appears to be following the established playbook for RICO prosecutions in Atlanta, which have already ensnared other high-profile rappers like Young Thug. The pattern typically involves 1. Building cases against lower-level associates or rival gang members first. 2. Using those cases to gather evidence and testimony about higher-profile targets. 3. Establishing gang designations for what artists might consider labels or legitimate businesses. 4. Finally, bringing comprehensive RICO indictments against the primary targets. We're seeing this exact pattern unfold with the Goodfellas OMF prosecutions potentially laying groundwork for a case against 4PF and Lil Baby. One of the most troubling aspects of this case is how law enforcement seems determined to characterize 4PF as a criminal gang rather than simply a record label. This designation is crucial for RICO purposes, and investigators have been explicit about this characterization.
Okay. And how did you know this about John J. Shot Smith, that he was a member of 4PF?
He can be seen out there on his Instagram. He can be seen pictured with Mr. Jones. He frequents the area where the homicide occurred as well. He's filmed a music video out there.
This testimony demonstrates how authorities are building the case that 4PF functions as a criminal organization rather than just a music collective, a key element in any potential RICO case against Lil Baby. The implications are sobering for artists who maintain connections to their neighborhoods and frequently feature associates in videos and social media. As one commentator noted,
I hope you rappers is listening. This is such an eye-opener. If let's say you have a homie, right? And your homie, let's say he comes around, he's repping the squad 4PF, but your homie has some side beef, and your homie's got homies of himself. If your homie gets killed by, let's say, his ops, and then your homie's homies come back and kill somebody, and a gang war ignite, you're now the crime boss, even though you have nothing to do with whatever personal beef he has with those people, and his homies is involved. You are now automatically involved because he's in your entourage and you brought him around and he's in the music videos and he's around you and he's banging 4PF for the clout. You are now involved, and they're going to include you as a gang leader and say that you are the catalyst for a gang war that had nothing to do with you. These people cold, man.
This commentary highlights the dangerous legal territory Lil Baby occupies as the founder and public face of 4PF. Even if he personally hasn't ordered hits or engaged in violence under RICO, he could potentially be held responsible for actions committed by others under the 4PF banner. Interestingly, Lil Baby appeared to recognize this risk, as he rebranded 4PF to Glass Window Entertainment in December 2024, just months before these allegations became public. This rebranding could potentially be interpreted interpreted as an attempt to distance himself from a name that authorities were increasingly characterizing as a gang designation.
All right, y'all. So yesterday we talked about Lil Baby, and you guys had a lot of questions in the room that I couldn't answer at the time because of what was given via the police press conference. So Fox 5 Atlanta has actually retrieved the arrest warrant. So remember I told you guys that yesterday in that press conference when they called out the rapper who they say they're going to make sure, has these consequences because of the part that this person played in what they're now calling this gang war that resulted in multiple deaths. And then there was this arrest warrant that had Dominique Jones' name in it. Dominique Jones is Lil Baby. So that linked him to this conversation. So Fox 5 Atlanta went and retrieved the arrest warrant themselves, and they are now saying that after seeing this arrest warrant, they're able to specifically point to the other gang. Yesterday in that press conference, the police only named one gang, OMF, only My Family, but according to this arrest warrant, 4PF, which is 4 Pockets Full, which we know at one time was Baby's label. It was a crew that he was running around with until he changed the name of the label back in 2024 to Glass Window Entertainment. It's also being named as the opposing gang in this rivalry that the police are alleging is going down.
For Lil Baby's legal team, the wiretap evidence presents particularly difficult challenges. Unlike some other forms of evidence that might be more easily challenged or contextualized, recorded conversations discussing tickets on people's heads have a visceral impact that's difficult to overcome, especially if presented to a jury. Legal experts suggest several potential defense strategies Lil Baby's team might employ. 1. Challenge the authenticity or context of the wiretaps, arguing that the conversations have been misinterpreted or that the term tickets was being used differently than claimed. 2. Emphasize the hearsay nature of the evidence, since the wiretaps reportedly capture others discussing what they believed about Lil Baby rather than direct communications with him. 3. Question the credibility of Viverito as a gang expert, potentially highlighting inconsistencies or overreaching in her testimony. 4. Challenge the characterization of 4PF as a criminal organization rather than a legitimate business venture. 5. Argue that any violence occurring after the music video shoot was not directed or approved by Lil Baby, regardless of what others might have claimed. One particularly interesting aspect of Viverito's credibility that might be exploited by the defense is her controversial role in the ongoing Young Thug YSL trial, where she faced significant criticism and judicial scrutiny.
At this point, bro, we gotta stop using Burrito the Vixen as a gang expert or as anybody credible, bro. Have y'all forgotten the YSL trial where even the judge got frustrated at Burrito because Burrito was on that stand, bruh, spewing nonsense, dodging questions, being uncredible?
This history could potentially be used to undermine her testimony about the meaning of terms like tickets in the intercepted communications. However, despite these potential defense approaches, the combination of wiretap evidence, the pattern of violence following the music video shoot, and the apparent preparation by authorities for RICO indictments creates a perfect storm of legal jeopardy for Lil Baby. If formal charges are filed, Lil Baby could face a situation similar to Young Thug, who has been held without bail since May 2022, while his RICO case proceeds through the courts, a process that has already taken years with no end in sight. The economic and career impact of such prolonged legal proceedings would be devastating, potentially derailing Lil Baby at the height of his commercial success. And there's many more rappers and celebrities who have flown too close to the sun and got burnt like this. Check the video on your screen to find out more.